You because I think we both read the same McKinsey report, and it took a look at the impact of the pandemic, K to 12 student learning, and it showed that on average, students were 5 months behind in math and 4 months behind in reading by the end of the school year. So talk to me about what that really means in terms of, a gap.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's important for people to understand that McKinsey was able to work with Curriculum Associates iReady data. So that's a really strong assessment and curriculum provider that across the country had 1.6 million student data available for them to look at. And the even better piece is that they have data from students prior to the pandemic. So it took a look at how are we doing on average by subgroup, rural, urban, suburban settings, white, Black, Hispanic students, math, reading, you name it, all the different ways. How are we doing pre-pandemic, and now how are we doing here? And so I think those numbers are important to note because we've been using a one-size-fits-all school model for a really long time, and now we're seeing that there are pockets of students that are significantly behind their peers, and then that's building on pre-pandemic numbers where we know plenty of students they weren't on track in the same way that their peers were. So the McKinsey article cites Black students are actually 7 months behind, right, when you compare it. So that average in math. So that average of 5 months is actually worse if you are a student, a Black student. And if you're a Hispanic student, it was 6 months. So I think it's really important that we have that data so that it's helpful to districts, parents, state administrators to then inform programs and solutions that are customized to the kids that need it the most.
And Peggy, when we take a look at that shift that had to happen, obviously, to remote learning during the pandemic, it also had a really serious disruption to special education services, likely exacerbating a widening achievement gap.
Absolutely. And that continues, as Ashley was saying, the data does show more of an impact on kids with disabilities, but there are some safeguards in place. I think the increase in use of technology, the expansion in use of technology will enable our educators, as they did beforehand, to look at each individual student with families, with their teachers, with experts in their disability, to identify what services will accelerate learning for those students this year. I love the focus on accelerating learning rather than looking at learning loss or mislearning. It's really focusing in on what do kids need, what are those priority skills to get them to work at their grade level, and what additional services, extended learning opportunities will help them get back on track. And that goes for all kids.
When